In today's show, we aim to tackle a simple question. How much better are the Trailblazers this season? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same as Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're going to try to answer a simple question. How much better did the Trailblazers get this offseason? I don't think it has a particularly simple answer to it, but at least the question itself to pose is relatively simple. Then at the end of the show, Blazers added a player on Exhibit 10 contracts. Welcome to Portland, Javonte Cooke. Could be a short stay, could be here for a while. I'll catch you up on everything you need to know about Cooke at the end of the program. But let's start with this question. This basically the sort of the premise here is: are the Blazers better? And if so, how much? This question was prompted by a couple emails from listeners, Jamal and Scott, who kind of asked similar versions of the same question. Basically, like, are the Blazers better this year? And if they are better, are they like truly competitive better? Are they like, as Joe Cronin called it at the Damian Lillard press conference, said it's winning time for the Portland Trailblazers? And one of the questions from Jamal, listener Jamal, is like, is it like, what does that mean? Like, is it really winning time? How good do they think they are? How good do like we, the sort of watching public, think they are, the viewing public think they are? And so I want to unpack that to in the first couple segments of the show. I think first and foremost, you got to talk about what changed. Let's start there. Anthony Simons, gone. DeAndre Ayton, gone. Delano Banton, gone. End of list. That's it. Not a lot changed. Anthony Simons traded for Drew Holiday in a relatively rare player-for-player trade. We'll get to that in a moment. Delano Banton walks in free agency, effectively replaced by Blake Wesley. Wesley, not the scorer that Banton is, but is a better, has upside as a defender. I imagine he won't play as much as Banton did last year, but he sort of fits the team's ethos more than Banton did. Although Banton, I will say, addressed like a specific need that they had sometimes, which is like, who can put the ball on the rim? And Banton could answer that question, me, every time I touch it. And then finally, DeAndre Ayton, gone, waived. Didn't want to deal with it, right? Didn't think there was much. Obviously, didn't see that there was a path to trading DeAndre Ayton for something that was palatable. Something we speculate a lot on here, that Ayton's at his price point just like did not have a trade market. Clearly, the Blazers felt that way, and they decided that it would behoove them just to go ahead and waive him because that was the direction they were going to go. There was some reporting that Ayton asked for to be waived. I'm sure the Blazers tried their best to trade him, and if they didn't feel like they would be better off without him on the roster, they probably would have just dragged him along with them. So there's not much upside in waiving Ayton when they did, except clarity of decision making, like clarity of the roster. So that's what changed, right? That's what changed. Not a lot. So why will they be better? Let's start with that. Why will this team be better? I think let's start with the changes first. I think one of the reasons they could be better is just because Drew Holiday straight up could be better than Anthony Simons at winning basketball games. Might not be statistically better, and some people love points, and so they're just going to always think the dude who scores is better than the guy who scores less, and that's fine. Think about basketball however you like, but the way I think Drew, there's a chance that the graph's just heading the wrong way. Father Time, Mother Nature, it's your parents are generally going to be right in this situation. But Drew Holiday is maybe it was just like a prolonged shoulder injury and whatever, and he can get his sort of body right, or maybe he's 35 years old and his body is just not going to be right. But if you assume like pretty good health from Drew, the way he contributes to winning basketball is he has done that at a much higher level than Anthony Simons has, and the difference is that they're like almost a decade apart in age, right? And like you're banking that one of those dudes is entering his physical prime, and the other one is sort of leaving his the age that most professional athletes still contribute in a positive way. But even if Drew isn't like better, I think there's a safe bet that he's better at helping you win basketball games. He's at least just a cleaner fit. So you can play him in lineups a little bit easier next to both Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson in a way that it was harder to play Anthony Simons in those spots. So I think one of the reasons that you can say, okay, they're going to be better is because just Drew makes more sense. He might straight up just be a better basketball player, but if he's not, right, or if it's close, he just makes more sense on the roster, and having the roster make more sense and be able to play like with better context, I think is helpful. The other obvious stuff is the internal growth, right? The reason that the Blazers will be better this season is because Scoot Henderson has, improved each year of his career. Obviously, he really struggled as a rookie, but I thought year 2, although he didn't get as much opportunity, certainly not as much opportunity as one podcaster would have hoped that the Blazers would have committed to their number 3 overall pick, who started 10 games his second season in the league. He certainly was improved, right? And he looks like he's going to be an NBA player and all that. And he might take a leap to yeah, this dude's going to play in the league for a long time, which is, I feel comfortable about saying that about Scoot to like, and I didn't after year 1, but I certainly do now, to like, oh yeah, this dude's like a positive NBA player, a starting caliber point guard and all that. That would be a leap for Scoot to take this year. And like young players, generally his age, are the ones who take leaps. And so like Scoot taking a year 3 leap, Shaedon Sharpe taking a year 4 leap. There are signs that Shaedon Sharpe's got a lot of stuff, right? He's a really good finisher. He's got the ability to get a shot up in the mid range. The shot looks pretty good, although a little flat maybe from 3, but the aesthetics of the jumper look good. Feels like he could be a guy who scores all over the court. If he figures out some secondary stuff, he's a pretty good rebounder. Certainly for his size, for his position, he's an excellent defensive rebounder. There's some secondary stuff though, defensive playmaking and passing and stuff that he could add to his game. And if that kind of comes around, the shooting comes around, there's a chance that Shaedon Sharpe just is really effective this year, right? He's got a fair number of boxes to check. But why they're better is because a guy who is relatively green and in terms of playing high level basketball continues to improve, and Sharpe would take a step. Add Donovan Clingan to that list. He was pretty darn good as a defensive anchor the last half of his rookie season. He has some real warts on offense, but if he gets a little bit better and just okay, I can score in this one way on offense, his hands get a little bit better, touch around the rim gets a little bit better, footwork gets a little better, all that stuff, and he continues just to be that defensive anchor. Yeah, he's going to take a step. Denny Avdia, I think, how big of a leap, I think, is the question with Denny that he could take this year. But let's just say it's one of the reasons he'll have less growing pains, right? He won't spend half the season kind of figuring out how I fit into the plan. They know what Denny's going to be. He's going to be the plan is going to be a lot of Denny this year. They're unlikely to be as steep of a learning curve this season. And then, he's closed the season so freaking strong. He was very good the final 35 games. He was excellent in the final 20 games. If he builds somewhere to at the middle of those 2 points, or even just if he's as good as he was to end the year, he's like a 19-7-5 guy, and with as a positive defender. A whole year of that version of Denny as opposed to half the year, they'd be better. Jeremy Grant remembers how to make 2-pointers. Dude shot under 40% on 2s inside the arc, under 40% on 2s last year. What if he shot a normal percentage for someone his size? He couldn't score at the rim. He couldn't make 2-pointers. I'm not even saying what if Jeremy Grant magically learns how to rebound 10 years into his career. It's just come on now, be realistic. I'm talking about what if he just gets back to like shooting 40% from three and not being like one of the worst 2-point scorers in the league. I think there's a reason they'll be better just if like Jeremy Grant is like way less of a negative on offense. Another reason I think they'd be better is a full or fuller season, because obviously there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way, but a fuller season of Matisse Thybulle, who I don't think is going to play a ton if everybody's healthy, but it just, if he's available, if Thybulle's available, there's just so many lineups you can play that are just so chaotic on defense. It's like, yeah, throw Tease in there with Drew Holiday, with Tumani, with like either Denny or Jeremy Grant. It's like you can just fly around and just add to the chaos. And, I thought Tease was pretty darn good when he played. He just played at the end of the season when the games don't matter. So it's hard to know, like, it's hard to say, like, yeah, he took this big step forward. He shot the ball well in 20 games. It's just not a big enough sample to be meaningful. But like, even if he's like his career average, like career level, like below average 3-point shooter, his also career impact is like one of the best defensive playmakers in the game. A fuller season of Matisse Thybulle, add it to the list. That's all the reasons that they might be better, right? The internal improvement of the youngsters, Scoot, Shaden, and Klingon, the steps forward of Denny Avdia, of Jeremy Grant getting back to his level, Matisse Thybulle getting back to his level. I didn't mention Tumani Kamara, but let's say that Tumani doesn't have it like a huge leap in him. Well, what if he just sharpens his already pretty impressive skill set, right? He was a positive starter last year, one of the best defensive players in the game. Say he's, 2% better than he was last season. That's a starter that plays for every team in the league. All of those reasons are reasons to think the Blazers might get better. But how much better, and what are the holdups? Let's talk about that in the second segment, because while there is a lot of reasons to be rosy in the Rose City, there is a reality here that I feel we at least need to look at, to unpack a little bit. Join me in that second segment, and we will do just that. First, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. And caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. The best part about 5 Hour Energy is that it comes in so many different flavors, so you can find something that you will like. You're going to find, if you're familiar with the traditional flavors, well, guess what? They got a cajillion other ones now. Well, maybe 16 other ones now. But they're also portable, so you can take them with you. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take them anywhere. They fit in your backpack. They fit in your back pocket, depending on how big your back pockets are. They fit in your purse. They fit in your fanny pack. They fit where you need to go. So if you do need a boost, if you do need to sort of get that little caffeine boost late in the day without the crash, well, 5 Hour Energy is going to do it for you. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. All right. So I mentioned all the reasons for optimism, right? They've got hope for internal improvement. They made the one trade they made, like, sort of has a cascading effect where it could like be really useful, because you might get a just straight up better player, but if nothing else, you get a player that complements your young player. So it could be it could trickle down to being like, hey, this works. This is a good addition, and it's also additive in a way that it helps other players take steps forward because the context of playing basketball makes more sense. All good. But Mike, you're about to do some hater stuff. I am. Here are my actual holdups about the Blazers. And then this is kind of sparks the sort of questions I got from some longtime listeners. Is like, when Joe Cronin said it's winning time and then created the center rotation that the Blazers have, that strikes me as a little incongruous. I'm not a DeAndre Ayton fan. I didn't really enjoy watching DeAndre Ayton play basketball. I don't think he is a guy who impacts high level winning basketball every time he steps out on the floor. He has some moments, and then he has a lot of moments where he's just meh. That said, He's like a starting center in the NBA, right? Like he's definitely an NBA starter. Maybe his paycheck was a little too big, but I'm not even when I say I don't think he's that helpful. Like it isn't really about the $35 million. It's like that. I don't think he locks it down on defense, and I don't think he does enough on offense to offset that sort of lack of defensive impact. He's fine, and yet he's clearly an NBA starter. And I'm a pretty big Donovan Clingan believer. I am. I think he's going to be really good in the pros, but he has some real limitations. A lot of people want to point to the conditioning and how much can he play. Fine. Okay, cool. Let's even like push it to the high end. Let's say he can play 30 minutes comfortably every night, 75 games a year. It's a lot, but let's say that. Even if that's the case, I'm worried about the center position. And this is why I'm worried about sort of the Blazers overall taking a step forward. I just think you're going to have a lot of nights where the 5 spot is a little dicey. Clingan's good. I like him. I think he's going to be a good player in the NBA. Rob Williams is awesome when he plays. He just hasn't been available enough for me to bank on the idea that he will be able to play big minutes for any stretch of time or play a large number of games. Just the reality of how the Blazers have of Rob's tenure with the Blazers, Rob's last 4 years in the NBA. It's just, I hope I am dead wrong about this, right? I hope I am that Rob says, you idiots, I'm back and I'm going to play and all these things. But like, just the idea and even the sort of the hope that Rob Williams is a regular big minute contributor on this team seems pretty darn unlikely. If he is, the Blazers might just straight up be good because he's a very good basketball player when he plays, albeit with some of his limitations, right? But he's a really positive impact. I think when he played last year, he was like the Blazers' best big man. He just didn't play enough to really earn that title in any meaningful way. So that means that a lot of nights, probably many, and I'm going to straight up say the majority of nights this season, the Blazers' 2 backup centers and only healthy centers on the roster behind Donovan Clingan are Young Hansen and Duop Reith. Should Donovan Clingan get into foul trouble or really do have some sort of conditioning limitations where he really is like a 26-minute a night guy, you're talking 22 plus minutes for either a 20-year-old rookie in Young Hansen, and just like the sort of the likelihood that he is a positive player in terms of like make the playoffs good, because we're not talking about winning 35 games. We're talking about being better than the Blazers were last season, right? Being a team that pushes 41 wins, right? It wins half your games. I guess better is 37 wins, but like the chances that any rookie is a positive player is relatively low. The chances that Young Hansen, with the sort of level of a jump he is making, pretty low. I am pretty skeptical of him being a positive NBA player in year one. I want to watch him play a bunch. In fact, I wish that the Blazers' sort of goals were a little bit different so they could just like roll out a lot of Hansen minutes. Duop Reith, fun player. I love his story. I like him as a person. I think we have seen the sort of limitations of what he can be on a good team. That his rookie season, he was awesome to begin, and then the more minutes he got and the bigger role he got, his limitations got exposed. He's not quite big enough to protect the rim. He doesn't offset it with enough shooting, although the shooting is pretty fun. And he's not like super duper strong such that he can like get away with not being much of a rim protector. He's a fun player. He's a third center. I like him and I'll always root for him, but if he's playing a ton of minutes, you're just not that good of a team. My big holdup for the Blazers taking a big step forward this season is that center position. That's my holdup. I'm not, I think Scoot and Shaden are going to be fine. I'm a believer in Denny and Tumani. I think Clingan's going to be okay. Jeremy Grant in a reduced role could be put straight up positive. Drew Holiday is a good NBA player, albeit we'll see kind of how much he bounces back from last season. I think the Blazers have, depending, I guess, like, I don't think Chris Murray is a positive rotation contributor, although he could be because he's a pretty good defensive player, but I think he's struggled enough on offense that I wouldn't put him in that category. I don't think Rupert is going to play real minutes. Like, even that said, like, even with my doubts on Chris Murray, it's like, yeah, I think they have some wing and guard combos that they can kind of put together some pretty grimy defensive teams. Up front, I am worried about their depth at center as being the thing that holds them back. The other thing, and I should mention this because I mentioned it before, is just their defense is going to be good because they removed Anfernee Simons from the lineup, a challenging defensive player, probably their worst defender, and maybe Shaden, but they added Drew Holiday. That alone is a pretty big upgrade there. And the second half of last season, right? The final 41 games, they were third overall in defense after January 19th. They went 23-18. They were really solid, right? Third overall in the NBA on defense. A very, very, very good defensive team. But they were also just like benefited from some shooting luck. Opponents shot 34.7% from three against them. League average over that same stretch of the final 41 games is 36.5. But really, they had crazy luck in the corners. League over the final 41 games, teams shot 33.7% from three in the corners. The league average is 39.4 from the corners. Like, they just benefited from some luck. And if you follow particularly Seth Partnow, formerly of The Athletic, but like anyone who does sort of these analytics deep dives, like defense opponent 3-point percentage is just like not a sticky stat. It just is. It just very rarely stays year to year. It is really, really susceptible to just lucky stretches here and there. I will say that the Blazers allowed the second fewest 3-point attempts in the league. They were darn good at preventing giving up the shots. That's probably more important than anything else. And while they did give up, bottom third in the league at giving up shots at the rim, they defended the rim really well. So I think two things here. I think they're going to backslide a little bit in 3-point shooting, opponent 3-point shooting. I think they're just like opponents are going to make, something like 3 or 4 more 3-pointers a week, and that's going to be a challenge for them. But I do think they upgraded their defensive personnel, particularly at guard, although I am a little worried about their defensive personnel at center, which is probably the most important defensive position. So we shall see. But I think those are kind of offsetting a little bit. So while I don't think they'll be third overall in defense, I think the Blazers have the tools to be top 10 pretty easily, 8th or something, somewhere in the 6 through 12 range easily, right? Because of just the personnel they have. So as we wrap up here, are they better? Yes. How much better? I don't know. I think there are reasons to believe that they could take steps in a lot of places, but I am skeptical, particularly because of the center rotation. I know they're going to go small some, but I don't know how much you can pull that off on every night in the West. Every night in the league, like it's just the sport is getting big again. So like I'm skeptical of the center position holding up enough for them to be consistently competitive. I can't wait to be wrong about this. I can't wait for Young Hansen to kill it and me to highlight the September 16th episode and be like, remember back in September when I was skeptical? And they're hooping. But that's my real thoughts. I think they are better. I do think the Blazers are better. But before I crown them as taking this massive leap forward, I'm a little bit. I have some holdups about kind of where about how big of a leap forward, because I do think, while I was not much of an Ayton fan, I do think they're going to miss DeAndre Ayton a little bit, and they are reliant on a real bounce back year from 35-year-old Drew Holiday. Okay, that's the answer to the question. How much do they get better? Winning time? I don't know. But I bet they win more games. The number floating around that I've told friends is about, I think they're like a 39-ish win team. They won 36 last year. That's an improvement. Is that winning time? That is for you, dear listener, to decide. The Blazers added a new player to the training camp roster. Javonte Cooke signed an Exhibit 10 contract over the weekend. Who is Javonte Cooke? I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about it. Join me in that third segment. First, though, let's talk FanDuel. The NFL season is here. We've made it to the very end of Week 2. In fact, the final game of Week 2 is happening as I'm recording this very episode right now. And FanDuel is making sure you're ready for all of the kickoffs with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So you can make a bet you believe in. Put your $5 down, make a bet you believe in, and then you get $300 to use however you like. Player props, same game parlays, live betting, point spreads, money lines, whatever it is, you're going to find it all on a quick and easy to use app that is super streamlined. So, are you ready to play? Well, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers. Portland has added another player to the training camp roster, according to reports from Joe Freeman of the Oregonian. This happened on Friday, along with the formal sale agreement of the Trailblazers. And yesterday's show, we talked about the sale agreement, with all due respect to Javonte Cooke, a new owner, more important than a new Exhibit 10 contract. But Javonte Cooke has signed an Exhibit 10 contract with the Blazers, according to a report from Joe Freeman of the Oregonian and Oregon Live. Let's start with, what is an Exhibit 10 contract? I'm glad you asked, dear listener. Basically, it's a 1-year minimum deal. It's fully non-guaranteed, and it is effectively a incentivized training camp invite. So how it works is you sign this Exhibit 10 contract, and it can include bonuses up to, I believe, $75,000, but it can vary. And that would be given to a player if they join the team's G League affiliate, or if they sign a two-way contract. It becomes guaranteed money on the two-way contract. Whereas basically all the other money on your two-way deal are on a potential two-way deal is non-guaranteed. So it's an incentive to get someone into training camp. Say, we like you. It's a very small amount of money, but you could go the fully non-guaranteed route, or sign this Exhibit 10 and get your $75,000 and either get into our G League program or potentially get on a two-way contract. The Blazers do have a two-way slot open. You get 3 each year, and they have 2 currently spoken for, with Sidi Sissoko and Caleb Love. So Cooke could potentially be that guy. I would say, based on the way they do business, Cooke is probably the early leader in the clubhouse to be that guy. Certainly they will fill all of those spots in training camp, and Cooke could be him. So who is Javonte Cooke? Well, I'm glad you asked about Exhibit 10 contracts, and boy, am I glad you asked about Javonte Cooke. Cooke has spent the last 3 seasons in the G League, has yet to play in an NBA game. He spent last year with the Oklahoma City Blue of the G League, and the prior 2 seasons played for the Iowa Wolves, the G League affiliate of the Minnesota Timberwolves. But by way of my neck of the woods, a South Carolinian, born in South Carolina, went to high school in South Carolina, and started playing D2 ball at USC Aiken. That's University of South Carolina, Aiken. Then transferred to Mars Hill, which is like a small private college near Asheville in North Carolina, and then wrapped up in the Dash. That's Winston-Salem State in North Carolina. Truly a man of culture who spent a lot of time in the Carolinas. And then went undrafted in 2022, joins the Iowa Wolves, and has spent the last 3 years in the G League, including last year with the Oklahoma City Blue, in which he appeared across all contests. So they do like the regular season and the tip-off tournament, because the G League has a funny split season. But he played 42 games, averaged 17 points to go along with 5 boards and 2.8 assists with a block and a steal. Shot 42... a steal and 0.3 blocks. Shot 42% from the floor, including 33.5% from 3, and it was a 68% free throw shooter. He played with the Miami Heat in summer league, and according to Freeman's reporting, that's kind of where the Blazers saw him as a standout. I would say they know more about Cooke than I do. He's a 6'6" wing, who hasn't exactly blown up the G League, but probably is someone that they have got their eye on. I guess clearly they've got their eye on him because they offered him a contract and they're bringing him into training camp, but he'll be a name to know. I think typically how preseason has worked, we just don't see these guys play very much in the actual preseason games. But for the most part, I think for veterans, the practice stuff is not very meaningful, although people like to assign meaning to it. And I will allow you to do that. I won't, but I'll allow you to do that. But for Cooke, I think getting into the gym and having this signed early and being, he's probably been in the gym for them for most of September, the way this usually works. So officially being there and being part of things. And when 2 weeks, when training camp does start, he probably has, a roughly a 6-week period to earn a two-way spot. And the Blazers, he's a 26-year-old who's yet to make his NBA debut. He's a flyer type of guy. I think he fits their general profile, which is a wing with, an athletic profile that can do some stuff. I can't say that I know much about him. I watched a summer league highlight tape before I hit record. I know nothing, but name to know. That's going to do it for today's episode. Come back for tomorrow's show. We will talk season preview of Toumani Camara. That's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.